Elijah Carter stood outside the grand Crestwood Gallery, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The evening air was crisp, and the soft glow of the gallery lights spilled onto the sidewalk, illuminating the faces of art enthusiasts and critics milling about. Dressed in a tailored blazer that complemented the vibrant colors of his paintings, Elijah took a deep breath, adjusting his tie as he prepared to step into the very space that could transform his career. His artwork, a vivid expression of his emotions and experiences, adorned the walls of this prestigious venue. It was a dream come true, but the reality of it made his palms sweat. As he entered, the atmosphere buzzed with chatter and laughter. The walls, adorned with his bold strokes and intricate details, seemed to pulse with life. Yet, Elijah couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. He noticed the furtive glances and whispered conversations that followed him. Even as attendees admired his work, he felt a chill in the air, a skepticism that lingered just beneath the surface. "Look at that one." A voice cut through the crowd, pointing at one of Elijah's larger pieces, a canvas that depicted a turbulent storm, symbolizing his internal struggles. "Isn't it interesting that a piece like this came from someone like him?" Elijah clenched his jaw, forcing himself to focus on the positive. He was here to celebrate his art, to finally be recognized for his talent. As he made his way through the gallery, he overheard snippets of conversation, most of which were not directed at him, but still cut deep. "Who does he think he is?" Another voice chimed in. "Just because he got a showing here doesn't mean he's on the same level as the others." He tried to brush off the comments, reminding himself that this was an opportunity to showcase his work, but the weight of their disregard bore down on him. Just then, a familiar face appeared. Margaret Wells, the prominent art critic known for her biting reviews and sharp tongue. She swept through the crowd like a storm, her presence commanding attention. Elijah felt a flicker of hope. If she acknowledged him, if she appreciated his art, it could mean everything. But as he approached her, ready to introduce himself, he overheard her talking to another guest. "Ah, yes, this piece is quite remarkable, isn't it? You'd think it was done by someone like Jason Green, though. You know, the rising star of the art scene." Elijah's heart sank. He stepped closer, determination igniting within him. "Excuse me, Ms. Wells," he interrupted, his voice steady despite the tremor of his nerves. "I'm Elijah Carter, the artist behind these works." Margaret glanced at him, her expression shifting from surprise to indifference. "Oh, yes, of course," she said dismissively, waving a hand as if shooing away a fly. "I meant no disrespect. It's just that your style bears a striking resemblance to some of the more established artists. I thought perhaps you were an assistant of sorts." Humiliation washed over Elijah like icy water. "An assistant?" he repeated, disbelief mingling with anger. "I poured my heart and soul into these pieces. They are my vision, my experiences." Margaret merely smiled, a patronizing smile that made him feel smaller. "Well, keep it at Elijah. You never know what might happen in the future." With that, she turned away, leaving Elijah standing in a sea of faces that had shifted their attention elsewhere. The laughter and chatter around him faded into a dull roar. He felt as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet, and the vibrant colors of his paintings dulled in his vision. Heartbroken, he slipped out of the gallery, seeking solace in a nearby cafe. The familiar aroma of coffee and pastries wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. But even here, he couldn't escape the sting of humiliation. He found a quiet corner, pulled out his sketchbook, and began to draw, letting the pencil flow as he poured his emotions onto the pages. Lost in his art, he barely noticed when Maya, a spirited art student with an infectious enthusiasm, slid into the seat across from him. "Is that you?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide as she glanced at his sketches. "I've seen your work at the gallery. It's incredible." Elijah barely made eye contact, still reeling from the earlier encounter. "Thanks," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya leaned in, sensing his turmoil. "What happened back there? You look like you were about to explode." Elijah hesitated, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. "Margaret Wells just dismissed me, said I was an assistant to some famous artist." It felt like all my hard work was erased in an instant. Maya's expression softened. That's ridiculous. Your art speaks for itself. Don't let her words define you. You have a unique voice, and it deserves to be heard. Elijah looked up, meeting her gaze. In that moment, he felt a flicker of hope rekindle. You really think so? I know so, Maya affirmed, her enthusiasm infectious. You have something special. Keep creating. Don't let one setback dim your light. As they talked, Elijah could feel the weight of the evening begin to lift. With each word exchanged, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a reminder that his journey was just beginning. Elijah Carter sat in the dim light of his small studio, surrounded by canvases that seemed to pulse with life. The vibrant hues of reds, greens, and blues danced across the fabric, each stroke a testament to his emotions, his struggles, and his identity as a Black artist in a world that often marginalized his voice. Determination flickered in his chest like a flame as he stared at the blank canvas before him. He felt the weight of the recent humiliation at the Crestwood Gallery pressing down on him. But instead of succumbing to despair, he channeled it into his art. This one's going to be different, he murmured to himself, dipping his brush into a deep indigo paint. He envisioned a series that would encapsulate his experiences with racism and identity, an outcry against the injustices he faced, a celebration of his resilience. As he painted, the colors began to merge and flow, creating a vivid narrative that spoke of struggle and hope. Each brushstroke was a catharsis, a release of the pent-up frustration he had felt since that fateful night at the gallery. As he shared snippets of his work on social media, he watched his follower count slowly rise. Comments flooded in, praising his talent and raw emotion. "This is powerful, Elijah," one user wrote. "Your voice matters. Keep pushing." With each notification, his heart swelled, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He began to document not just his art, but also his journey as a Black artist navigating a predominantly white industry. "I won't let them silence me," he declared softly, his eyes glinting with determination. Days turned into weeks, and Elijah poured everything he had into his new series. He titled it Reflections, each piece a mirror reflecting his personal struggles and triumphs. The bold colors and raw emotion resonated with many, and soon, he found himself engaged in conversations about representation, identity, and the systemic issues within the art community. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through his studio window, a notification popped up on his phone, a direct message. It was from an international art dealer named Anya Dubois, known for her keen eye for talent. "Elijah, I've been following your work and I'd love to discuss showcasing it at a renowned exhibition in Paris," the message read. His heart raced as he reread the words, disbelief mingling with excitement. This was the opportunity he had dreamed of, a chance to gain the recognition he deserved. "Is this real?" he whispered, almost afraid to believe it. He quickly typed a response, his fingers trembling. "Yes, I'd love to discuss this further." A surge of hope flooded through him, igniting a fire that had dimmed after the gallery incident. Maybe this was the breakthrough he needed to prove to the world, and to himself, that he was more than just a name in the shadows. Meanwhile, Crestwood Gallery was reeling from the backlash of their actions. The art community was abuzz with conversations about the incident, and social media was flooded with criticism. The gallery's director, James Thompson, sat in his office, surrounded by frantic staff members as they scrambled to contain the damage. "We need a statement, and we need it now," James barked, his voice laced with urgency. "We can't let this blow up any further." "But how do we explain the situation without outright admitting we messed up?" one of his assistants questioned, anxiety evident in her tone. James pinched the bridge of his nose, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "We need to acknowledge Elijah's talent and apologize for the misunderstanding. It's the least we can do to salvage our reputation." "Do you think that will work?" another staff member interjected, skepticism etched on her face. "It feels disingenuous after how we treated him." James glanced around the room, feeling the weight of their collective disappointment. "We don't have a choice. We need to act fast before this spirals further out of control. As the gallery prepared their statement, Elijah was blissfully unaware of their desperate attempts to regain their footing. He was too busy dreaming of Paris, visualizing the excitement of showcasing his art on an international stage. The thought of finally being seen and appreciated was intoxicating, fueling his resolve to continue creating and sharing his truth. With every brushstroke, Elijah felt closer to his dreams, inching away from the shadows of the past and stepping boldly into the light, ready to reclaim his narrative. Elijah stood beneath the soft glow of the Parisian lights, his heart racing as he gazed at the vibrant colors of his artwork displayed in the gallery. This was his moment, an exhibition that had drawn attention from critics and art enthusiasts alike. The opening night was buzzing with excitement, filled with influential figures, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive champagne and the sound of culture conversation. He took a deep breath, the anxiety of the past months melting away as he watched people admire his pieces. "Look at this one," said a voice nearby, breaking through his reverie. Elijah's heart swelled with pride as he overheard a group of critics discussing his work. The way he captures the complexities of identity is absolutely captivating. It's raw and real. "Absolutely," chimed in another critic. "He's a voice we desperately need in this industry. His perspective is unique, and the emotion he conveys is unlike anything we've seen in a long time." Elijah felt a warmth spread through him. After the humiliation, he faced back at the Crestwood Gallery. This recognition felt like a balm to his wounded spirit. He turned to see a tall, elegantly dressed woman approaching him. It was Anya, a well-respected art dealer he had only read about in magazines. "Elijah Carter," she said, extending her hand. "Your work is extraordinary. I've been following your journey, and I must say, you've made quite the impact with this exhibition." "Thank you, Anya," Elijah replied, shaking her hand firmly. "It means a lot to hear that from someone like you. Would you be interested in collaborating? I think we could create something powerful together," she suggested, her eyes gleaming with opportunity. Elijah was taken aback. "Collaborate? With me? Absolutely. Your voice needs to be heard on a larger scale. Let's discuss ideas over dinner," Anya proposed, her enthusiasm infectious. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the situation at Crestwood Gallery was rapidly deteriorating. James Thompson, the gallery's director, paced nervously in his office, his mind racing with thoughts of the mounting criticism. The backlash from the art community was fierce. Articles were being written, social media was ablaze, and the gallery's reputation was on the line. "We need to fix this," James said, addressing his team in a tense meeting. "Elijah's success is a direct threat to our credibility after what happened at the opening. We need to reach out to him, make amends." One of the staff members, a young intern named Lucy, raised her hand hesitantly. "But how can we make him believe we're sincere? He deserves more than just an apology." James sighed, rubbing his temples. "We need to offer him a solo exhibition. It's the only way to show we're serious about acknowledging his work. If we don't, we risk losing not just him, but the support of other artists who are watching how we handle this." As plans were set in motion, Elijah continued to bask in the glow of his success. The evening wore on, and he found himself surrounded by admirers, each offering praise and encouragement. He felt a sense of belonging he had longed for, a validation of his experiences, his struggles, and his art. Later that night, Elijah stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The cool Parisian breeze felt refreshing against his skin. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages of congratulations from friends and supporters. One message caught his eye, a notification from Crestwood Gallery. His heart sank momentarily. They had reached out, but there was a part of him that wanted to ignore it. He had fought so hard to reclaim his narrative, to show the world his worth. Yet a small voice in his head urged him to consider the opportunity. Perhaps this was a chance to bridge the gap and advocate for change within the institution that had wronged him. With a deep breath, he decided to call Maya. She had been a source of strength throughout his journey, and he needed her perspective. "Maya, I got a call from Crestwood," he said when she answered. "What? Seriously?" she responded, her voice laced with surprise. "What do they want?" They want me to have a solo exhibition, Elijah replied, his voice tinged with uncertainty. But I don't know if I should accept it. Maya was silent for a moment, contemplating. Elijah, this could be your chance to hold them accountable. You have the power to make them change. Don't let anger cloud your judgment. Use this as a platform to advocate for other artists who have faced similar struggles. Her words lingered in the air, a challenge wrapped in encouragement. Elijah felt a spark ignite within him. Perhaps this meeting could be more than just a reconciliation. It could be a chance to redefine the narrative, not just for himself, but for others who had been silenced. Okay, I'll meet with them, he finally said, determination creeping into his voice. But I'm going to make sure they understand the importance of this moment. Elijah Carter sat across from James Thompson, the director of Crestwood Gallery, his heart pounding with a mix of indignation and resolve. The sleek, modern office felt more like a courtroom than a place for reconciliation. The walls, adorned with art that failed to reflect the diversity of the world outside, seemed to close in on him. He could feel the weight of the previous months pressing down, all the moments of humiliation and doubt swirling in his mind like a tempest. I need you to understand how your actions impacted me, Elijah said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. What happened at the opening, being mistaken for someone else, was more than just an error. It was a blatant disregard for my work and my identity as an artist. James shifted in his chair, his expression a mix of regret and defensiveness. I can't tell you how sorry I am for that. We were caught off guard, and I take full responsibility for the miscommunication. I want to make this right. I'm prepared to issue a public acknowledgement of your work, Elijah. This gallery can put you on a pedestal, and I want to help elevate your career. Elijah narrowed his eyes, skepticism gnawing at him. And why should I believe you? Because you're worried about your reputation now that the art community has turned against you? This isn't just about me. It's about a systemic issue that you and your gallery have perpetuated. James's brow furrowed, and he leaned forward, his hands clasped. I understand your concern, but if you give us the chance, we can create a platform for more marginalized voices. I want to ensure that this doesn't happen again, not just for you, but for other artists who have faced similar challenges. Elijah paused, weighing the sincerity in James's voice against the backdrop of his previous experiences. He thought of Maya's encouragement, the way she had pushed him to use his art to advocate for change. It was time to turn this situation into an opportunity for others. If I agree to this, it can't just be about me. I want to ensure that the gallery commits to diversity in all its exhibitions. There should be a dedicated space for artists of color and other underrepresented groups. James nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Absolutely. We can develop a program to showcase their work. I'll work with our curators to create a more inclusive selection process. You have my word. Your word isn't enough, Elijah replied, his voice firm. I want to see real changes in writing. There needs to be accountability. You can't just say you care. You have to prove it. Consider it done, James said, his tone earnest. I'll draft a proposal outlining our commitment to diversity and inclusion within a week. I hope you'll see that I'm serious about this. As the meeting concluded, Elijah felt a mix of trepidation and cautious optimism. Walking out of the gallery, he spotted Maya leaning against a nearby tree, her sketchbook resting on her lap. She looked up with a smile, but it faded as she saw the conflicted expression on his face. How did it go? She asked, concern knitting her brow. Elijah sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. He apologized, offered to acknowledge my work publicly, but I'm not convinced it's genuine. I told him I wanted to see change, real change, not just words. Maya leaned in, her eyes bright with determination. That's exactly what you should do. Use your voice, Elijah. You have the chance to advocate for others who've been silenced. This could be the beginning of something bigger. He nodded, inspired by her enthusiasm. You're right. I need to make sure that this platform isn't just for me. I want to create opportunities for artists who haven't been given a chance. As they walked together, Elijah's mind raced with ideas. He considered the artists he knew, friends and peers struggling to find their place in a system that often overlooked them. What if we organized a series of workshops? He suggested, his voice gaining momentum. We could invite artists from diverse backgrounds to showcase their work, provide mentorship, and even create a fund to support their projects. Maya's eyes sparkled. That's brilliant. You could partner with local schools and community centers, too. Get young artists involved. Show them that their voices matter. Elijah smiled, the weight on his shoulders lifting slightly. I'll reach out to some contacts I have in the community. This could be the turning point we need, not just for me, but for so many others. As they discussed their plans, a sense of purpose began to envelop Elijah. But amid their excitement, a nagging thought lingered in the back of his mind. He needed to address Margaret Wells, the critic who had sown seeds of doubt about his talent. The information he had just received from a mutual friend weighed heavily on him. Margaret had been spreading false narratives, attempting to diminish his success and undermine his credibility in the art world. "Hey Maya," he said, suddenly serious. "I found out that Margaret has been talking behind my back. She's been spreading lies about my work and trying to downplay my success." "What?" Maya's expression hardened. "That's outrageous. We can't let her get away with that." "I know. I need to confront her, but I want to do it the right way. I can't let her derail what we're trying to build." Maya nodded, her resolve matching his. "You have to stand up for yourself. It's not just about you. It's about every artist who's been disrespected and dismissed." Elijah felt a renewed sense of determination. He would confront Margaret, not just for himself, but for all those who had faced similar injustices. But first, he needed to focus on the plans he and Maya were formulating, ensuring that his journey would lead to stronger voices rising above the noise of discrimination and doubt. Elijah stood backstage, the cacophony of voices from the gallery floor echoing in his ears. The grand opening of his solo exhibition was just moments away, and with it, the chance to confront the injustices he had faced in the art world. He could feel the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders, a mixture of anticipation and trepidation swirling within him. Dressed in a tailored suit that hugged his frame, he took a deep breath, reminding himself of all the hard work and resilience that had led him to this point. As he stepped onto the stage, the crowd fell into a hush, eyes turning toward him. The flickering lights illuminated his face, revealing the determination etched into his features. He glanced at the audience, familiar faces, critics he had once feared, and the ever-looming presence of Margaret Wells. She stood near the front, her expression unreadable, but he could sense the tension radiating from her. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Elijah began, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "This exhibition is not just a celebration of my work. It's a reflection of the struggles faced by countless artists like myself in a world that often overlooks them." He paused, scanning the crowd, allowing his words to sink in. He felt the energy shift in the room, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "I stand before you as a Black artist in a predominantly white art world, a space that has historically marginalized voices like mine. Tonight, I want to share my journey, not just of creation, but of confronting the systemic racism that persists within our community." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Elijah pressed on, drawing from the well of experiences that had shaped him. "At my last exhibition here, my work was dismissed, my identity erased, and my talent belittled. I was reduced to an assistant of someone who didn't look like me, while my art was overshadowed by prejudice." He gestured toward a vibrant painting that hung behind him, its colors swirling with emotion. "But my art has a voice, and it speaks of resilience, of heritage, and of the beauty found in our differences." Margaret, unable to remain silent, interjected, "Elijah, I didn't mean to." "Please," he interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. "This isn't just about you or me. It's about the system that allows such misrepresentation to happen repeatedly. It's about the need for diversity in the voices we choose to amplify." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between them. "Your work is impressive, Elijah, but perhaps you could consider what exactly?" He challenged, his heart racing. "That the art world is a meritocracy? That hard work alone guarantees recognition? I have poured my soul into every canvas, and yet I was cast aside simply because of the color of my skin." The crowd, now fully engaged, began to murmur in agreement. Elijah felt a surge of strength, bolstered by their support. I'm not here to seek revenge. I'm here to advocate for change. We need to acknowledge the biases that exist and create spaces for artists of all backgrounds to thrive. It's time we elevate the voices that have been silenced for too long. As he concluded, the applause erupted, echoing through the gallery. Elijah's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and relief. He had spoken his truth, and for the first time, it felt like the community was listening. But just as the energy in the room reached its peak, James Thompson, the gallery director, stepped forward, his demeanor tense. "Elijah, I appreciate your words, but we need to address some misunderstandings first." "Misunderstandings?" Elijah echoed incredulously. "You call it a misunderstanding when you perpetuate a narrative that diminishes my artistry? How can you claim to support diversity while your actions tell a different story?" James shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the crowd as if seeking their approval. "I assure you, we value your contribution and are committed to making amends." "Amends?" Elijah repeated, disbelief coloring his tone. "You mean to say that you want to profit off my story of struggle while failing to acknowledge the damage you've caused?" Before James could respond, a voice from the back of the room cut through the tension. "You should be ashamed of yourself, James. We all saw what happened at the last exhibition. You've had your chance to support Elijah, and you blew it." The crowd erupted in agreement, the atmosphere crackling with outrage. Elijah felt a wave of empowerment wash over him. He had come here to confront his past, but now he was witnessing a shift, an awakening in the community that had long been dormant. The truth was spilling out, and for the first time, it felt like justice was within reach. In the aftermath of the exhibition, the atmosphere in Crestwood Gallery was charged with a mixture of awe and tension. News of Elijah's powerful speech had spread like wildfire, igniting discussions about representation and accountability in the art world. As Elijah stood on the stage, the glow of the awards ceremony lighting his face, he felt a profound sense of validation wash over him. The award he held in his hands was not just a symbol of success. It was a testament to his resilience and the struggles he had faced. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elijah began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "This award represents more than just my journey. It represents the voices of countless artists who have been silenced or overlooked. We must acknowledge the systemic issues within our industry and strive for a future where diversity is not just an afterthought, but a fundamental principle." A round of applause erupted from the audience, filled with influential figures and art lovers who had once underestimated him. Among them, Maya stood proudly, her eyes gleaming with tears of joy and admiration. She had been a constant source of support throughout his journey, encouraging him to harness his experiences into powerful statements through his art. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the fallout from the exhibition was unfolding. James Thompson, the director of Crestwood Gallery, paced nervously in his office, clutching a stack of papers detailing the investigation into the gallery's practices. The backlash against the gallery had been swift and unforgiving. Financial penalties loomed, and the community demanded accountability for the disrespect Elijah had endured. Reports of James's resignation began to surface, and his expression mirrored the fear of losing everything he had built. In the midst of this chaos, Elijah received a phone call that would change the trajectory of his career. It was from the director of a major museum, expressing interest in hosting a retrospective of his work. "Elijah, your exhibition in Paris was a revelation. We want to showcase your journey, your struggles, and your triumphs. This is an opportunity to celebrate not just your art, but the message behind it," the voice on the other end said, brimming with enthusiasm. Elijah felt his heart race. "A retrospective? At a major museum?" he stammered, disbelief coloring his tone. "This is incredible, but I want to ensure that this exhibition highlights not only my work, but also the voices of other marginalized artists." "Absolutely," the director replied. "We are committed to showcasing a range of perspectives. We believe your story can inspire change and encourage dialogue about representation in the art world." As the call ended, Elijah sat in silence, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He thought about the initial rejection, the humiliation, and the determination that had fueled his rise. Each brushstroke on canvas had been a step toward reclaiming his narrative. He realized that his struggles had not only forged him into a stronger artist, but also positioned him as a beacon of hope for future generations. "Hey, you okay?" Maya's voice broke through his reverie as she approached him, her smile bright. "I saw the way you spoke earlier. You were amazing." "Thanks, Maya," Elijah replied, a grin spreading across his face. "I just got off the phone with a major museum. They want to do a retrospective of my work." Maya gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "That's incredible, Elijah. You deserve this more than anyone I know. You've fought so hard." Elijah chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "I can't help but think about everything that happened at Crestwood. It feels surreal to be here, to be recognized after all that." "But that's exactly it," Maya said, her tone earnest. "You turned that pain into something transformative. You're not just an artist. You're a catalyst for change." As they stood together, surrounded by the echoes of applause and admiration, Elijah understood that his fight was not over. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to advocate for those who remained unheard. This moment marked not just a personal victory, but a collective promise to reshape the narrative within the art community, ensuring that future artists would not have to face the same struggles he had endured. With every brushstroke and every word spoken, Elijah Carter was ready to lead the charge toward a more inclusive and equitable future in the art world.